Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, I'm Tara Sands.
And I'm Steve Yurko.
And you're listening to
4Kids Flashback.
That's the podcast that you put on. So if you meant to put on something else, you should change it now.
Yeah.
But if you, I mean, I guess there's other things you could have thought it was, but
we're a very
this
generous
is 4Kids
podcast.
Flashback.
Yeah, we're very generous here. We'll give you the chance to opt out.
Well, we won't talk about 4Kids until you change to another podcast. Okay, those people are gone. Now it's the people who actually want to be here. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for listening. You're here because you want to hear about 4Kids, and more specifically, this interview with Mr. Marc Thompson.
Yeah. Mr. Marc.
Mr. Marc.
I don't know.
I don't think he's going to insist that we call him
I don't
that.
think so. I've never met the man. You know him. I don't know him.
I know him. Yeah, I don't have any nicknames for him. But maybe that will all change after this interview. Yeah, he's a great voice actor. He did a lot of the shows at 4Kids. He, like me, he works in audiobooks a lot, so he understands that torture of sitting in a windowless room for hours. So I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit. But he's a great guy. I'm excited for you to meet him.
All right, and just a few other things to address before getting started here.
Let's address them. Yes, let's address them. Steve has had his lunch. Oh, there was a whole snafu with Steve lunch. Should we tell them about that?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know why a website would default to the closest restaurant being 1,500 miles away. But you know, there's gonna be a fast food order that'll never be claimed. 15.
Oh man. Oh, so you couldn't even cancel it.
No,
yeah. So poor Steve. But he got his lunch.
Yes.
I found out. We're over Zoom, so I didn't get to have any of his lunch.
No,
but
I wouldn't have shared.
Yeah.
It was very
I had
hungry.
I had a bowl of cereal for lunch. That could
I have
not
those
be more
days.
boring.
I have those days.
Yeah.
But I was also just going to talk about podcast things. Like, of course,
Oh, fine.
you could go to the website. That's 4kidsflashback.com with the number 4.
Don't spell the number 4.
Don't.
Put the number 4.
Don't do it.
You'll find something filthy if you try to go to the No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what's there.
And
Yeah, 4Kids Flashback. Go to the site.
And also
It's awesome.
we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/4kidsflashback, also with the number 4. And
What will they find on the Patreon?
you could kick us back some cash, and you could get
5 smackaroos a month.
5 smackaroos, and you get ad-free podcasts. You get podcasts earlier than their
Early.
release date. Yeah.
Yeah, show off to your friends. Be like, I already heard that interview because I'm a week in the future because I'm a Patreon supporter. That could be you saying
But
that.
if you do run a social circle where everyone cares about our podcast, then I hope they're all listening.
And you know what? Don't share a Patreon subscription. That's shady. That's so shady. People probably do
Okay,
that.
Netflix.
Yeah, that's a very Netflixy thing to do. And we'll have some bonus content on the Patreon as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, try to make it worth your while. You can buy merch with our cool logo that Steve designed. All those links are on our website. I think that's the business.
That is the business end of it. But are we ready?
You know who's less boring than us? Marc Thompson. So let's get to that interview. Today we are here with Marc Thompson, who is a 4Kids legend. I'm going to go with legend. He's worked on, we'll get into it. You'd be bored if I listed all the shows he's worked on because there's too many. He's also an amazing audiobook narrator, just a great voiceover artist in general, and a really, really nice person. And you should see his dance moves. Holy moly. Oh, he's doing it now. It's too bad this is all.
This is audio.
This is audio.
Dang it.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
never mind.
They're not going to see that split.
Oh, that split was pretty impressive. There is a video on my Instagram somewhere of him dancing at a convention. But okay, welcome, Marc.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for agreeing to talk to us. Oh my gosh, you have no idea what you're in for. Whoa, who's that? What's his name?
Azer and Zig.
Oh.
Guys, stop. Okay.
Did they work at 4Kids?
They should have.
They should. There were
they
puppies
chased
there.
around. Yes, they're right. Mm-hmm. Was it Michelle's dog or other? Dogs?
There was definitely Michelle's dog. We talked about this on another episode. The dog's name was, oh shoot, I just edited that.
This is a deep dive. If you can get like the names of the dogs.
Yeah, Millie. It was Millie.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, I didn't
You're
remember
getting
that.
Inside info, folks.
Someone else remembered that. So
that's still impressive,
right? So, but I was saying that was like the first time I'd ever seen like pets in an office. Was that new for you?
They were very ahead of their time. Yeah.
There was a bunny in the office.
I never met the bunny.
Oh, there was
That's
a bunny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Weird, very weird, but cool. All right, I guess we should do a serious interview with you because you're a very serious person.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I guess, listen, let's go cover the cliche intro-y kinds of questions. Where did you grow up, and did you always want to be a performer?
Yeah, pretty early on. Like, I grew up, my family likes to make fun of me because I always tell people I grew up in Rochester, but I actually grew up in Webster, New York. So Webster is like a suburb of Rochester, and they're like, "You're trying to act like you're from a city. You're not from a city."
Oh, Steve, is that's much farther north than where you're from, Steve, right?
Yeah, like Rochester's like actual. That's what I think upstate is. But
yeah,
anyone in the city, anything beyond the city, everyone just calls it upstate, and I just have to accept it.
But wait, Steve, you're from Rockland. No, you're from which county?
Orange County, like Hudson
Orange
Valley
County.
area.
Okay.
So.
Okay, yeah. So I'm still further up than you, but yeah.
So you're saying that Rochester was a city compared to where you were from?
Yes. Like when I brought my wife home to meet my parents, she was like, "Oh my gosh," because it was literal cliche, one traffic light town type of place. Like it was like we had like you had to drive a long way to get to the town square to get to McDonald's and stuff like that. But there was like a farmer behind me. And it was just a giant field, and like when I was living there, it had not fully developed, so there were like woods further down the block or down our street, and so it was very remote.
The boonies.
And very kind of the boonies.
Where like
boonies,
a horror movie could be set.
That was her feeling. Yes, is that I could be murdered here, and I was like, you're safer here than in New York.
A friend of mine said the same thing. A friend of mine from college, when I brought them upstate, they're just like, "Wow, this is like horror movie stuff," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
too quiet for me." Yeah. Too scary. Okay, so you're living in this one-horse town. I don't think I've ever used that in a sentence. And you're learning voiceover from the horses. Yeah. As I just witnessed. Were you already thinking about a career as a performer at this time?
Kind of. I mean, like I had a really amazing like drama teacher and a speech and debate coach teacher, and someone from Webster might kill me if they ever hear this, but like I feel like at the time I was there, the drama department was doing better than a lot of the sports teams, or was a bigger deal than the sports teams, and so it was like a weird flip of things. Before like Glee had come out, at least from my perspective, it felt like that was a big deal to be in the musicals and stuff, and Mrs. Hofstetter and Miss Ham and Mr. Frost and Jane Aarons went all out. Like when we would do a musical, they would rent sets from up here, like from New York City, from Broadway shows. And so when we did My Fair Lady, we had the actual drops that they would use in really nice touring run things, and we would get really nice costumes and stuff. And so and they were super passionate about it. And I think my mom realized pretty early on that I was into performing, and got me into improv classes and singing classes. I want to say pre-high school, even middle school. She was getting me into that type of stuff.
Great.
And so, yeah, so like I had a lot of people really supporting me and nurturing me, and my teachers were really kind of encouraging me that like you could really do that, like you should really continue this, and my mom was really supportive, and just so I had a lot of encouragement. And like my dad on one of our, I forget, like we went on a trip to New York City. I was coming for a Star Trek convention.
And what a shock.
But I was, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I think of you as a Star Wars person, so actually that
so it
is
a bit
little...
of shock. Yeah.
All right, we'll get into that, but yeah, go on.
All right, yeah, I am both. So, but yeah, so we came here, and he loves to tell the story of me just like looking out the windows and like, is that a real skyscraper? And like, and I was just like really just in awe of New York, and fell in love with it pretty early on. And so yes, it was kind of a reach, and but it worked out, and I was able to come here and kind of pursue it. So.
And was voiceover as a job ever on your radar before you actually started doing it?
Not really. Like I was pretty obsessed with Aladdin and just Robin Williams, and like, I was fascinated by, it was a combination of Aladdin and Mrs. Doubtfire. Like when I saw that movie, and are you doing this stuff, or am I doing that stuff?
You did that. Mark, okay, we're on Zoom. Mark just had balloons fly over his face, and he has no idea how he did it. I don't know really how you did that.
That's so bizarre. Okay.
That was weird.
So, all right, so then I was obsessed with Robin Williams growing up. And I remember seeing Mrs. Doubtfire, and that was kind of the first time I was like, oh, right, like somebody does the voices for the cartoons. And there was something about that scene in the opening in Mrs. Doubtfire, seeing him do it, that definitely fascinated me. And I was like, that's really cool.
Which is really not how we dub, but it's it's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Right. And then just seeing his performance in Aladdin, and it's just them animating to all the different tangents he would go on, and improv lines and stuff. So I think some seeds were planted there, because I was pretty in awe of that. But I didn't necessarily have voiceover specifically on my radar until after I got here and auditioned for something my sophomore year, and kind of started going from there.
So you came here for school. I mean, not here, to New York. I'm saying that in LA as if.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you went to New York for school. Where did you study?
I went to Tisch School of the Arts at NYU.
Never heard of it.
Weird.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, never heard of it.
It's a great school, and it is the where a bunch of 4Kids actors went and studied as well.
Yeah, actually, Wayne was there either a year ahead of me, or we were there around the same time. There's an actor, Tom Wayland, that was there, a director around the same time I was there. Erica was there. Erica and I think did
Erica
shows.
Schroeder, yeah.
Erica Schroeder did some shows with Liz Swados there together.
Oh wow, Liz Swados from Runaways. She wrote Runaways.
Yeah,
that's a deep musical theater cut. That is wow.
She came and we did some we did a beautiful. I can't remember. Erica's gonna kill me. I don't remember this, but I know we did. Well, we did several together, but it was fun. Yeah. So.
See, more theater people. I love theater people. Tend to make great voice actors. They really adapt to that kind of performance very easily. Yeah. So you moved to New York. I think, like all of us, you were like, Broadway, I'm going to be serious theater, and then you started saying Pokemon. So how did that happen?
Okay, so so basically what happened was sophomore year, there was an audition, and it was posted on a cork board, because this was pre-internet in the olden days. And so it was like a phone number, and it was like, leave a message on this answering machine if you'd like to be cast in this cartoon. And the cartoon was about vampires or something like that. So I left some voicemail saying, I'd like to be in your cartoon. And I was like doing some sort of Igor thing or whatever. And that got me in the door. And then that cartoon did not go into production, but they were also working on Daria at the time, which was a spinoff of Beavis and Butthead.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got an audition for Daria, and I got that one. And I played Kevin Thompson, who's like the football player, and then Mr. DiMartino with the bulging eye, and Mr. O'Neill. And that was my first ever job.
Were you still in school at that time?
I was still in school.
That's very
so
cool.
I was technically, that was kind of being a bad boy, but yeah.
Well,
I
knew
really
that
want you to work
Tisch
when
did
you're...
not. One of the reasons I got into Tisch, and one of the reasons I didn't go and was hesitant, is because I knew they didn't like you working outside of school, and I was already doing voiceover, and I was like, I don't want to be scared every time I go to an audition that they're going to catch me. So you really were a bad boy.
Yeah. So, but it was, it was odd hours or hours that weren't conflicting with anything, and I was able. It wasn't like they were going to see me on TV or something. So.
Right.
But yeah, I was being bad. So, but I got it, and then that kind of opened the door, like at least opened my eyes to voiceover, and kind of gave me something I could put on my resume that was recognizable. And then several years later, so I actually was like a minister for a while at my church. So like I actually graduated and then was being a minister for a while, and then doing like Daria and voiceover on the side. And then during that time, there was a backstage audition for Pokémon. And so I answered that audition, and this was back when Pokémon was at Taj Studios with Larry, and I got in. I don't even remember what parts I got. It was like a guest of the week or something, and then like one of the people that Ash comes across and interacts with. So
you're the first person to mention that it was in backstage, because
oh,
I think that must have been. I've never been able to figure out how I got the job there. Now that you're backstage, for those of you who don't know, was a newspaper in New York for many, many years. It still exists as a website, with just casting calls. And you would, I would send my headshot or my cassette tape demo. But you're the first one that wasn't like through a friend of a friend or something.
Oh, yeah. So I was very fortunate. And then, but like shortly after I got it, I want to say it was less than a year I was doing stuff with Larry at Taj for Pokemon that it went over to 4Kids.
Right.
And then I kind of got introduced to everybody over there, and then I guess I started getting in their talent pool and able to audition for Yu-Gi-Oh! And a bunch of the other shows that I've gotten to do, and that's when it kind of
Do you remember what you thought
really
of?
blew up.
Do you remember what you thought of Pokemon the first time you saw it, or was it already? Did you already know what Pokemon was?
I had no idea, and I didn't even honestly understand what a big deal it was, honestly, until about 5 years ago. Because I was never into the game, and I was just like, oh, people like it, but I didn't understand what a phenomenon it was until much more recently. And I was like, oh, wow, this was really a big deal. So
this Pokemon thing.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, at first I was just like, this is really weird, and I didn't get that the monsters would kind of say their names and repeat themselves and stuff like that, and it definitely, it was not on my radar what a big deal it was, or what a big deal it would become, or I was just, for me it was just a job. I was just like, and it felt like this would be a bonus feature on a DVD, that this is the English dub would be the thing that someone would put on if they really wanted to watch it, and so they could understand what was happening. But I was like, I couldn't imagine people were watching this, or so.
Oh, Steve was. So Steve grew up watching this stuff.
Oh,
so
wow,
it's a great
that's
perspective. From
neat.
that
Those
side
are my
of it.
qualifications. Yeah.
Well, he has many other qualifications, but
Yeah, you have a cool flag in your wall.
Oh, thank you.
talking about the One Piece flag, y'all.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to Pokemon, which you did not know was a big deal, when you auditioned for Ninja Turtles, I'm sure you knew what that was.
Yes, so that was a big deal to me, and because I grew up watching the original and was a fan, and so that was the first time I was like, oh man, if I could get this, that'd be amazing. And so I was really, really excited for that audition, and worked really hard on it, and was I read for, I think, all the Turtles, and for Casey, and didn't get the Turtles, but I got Casey, and that was a big deal. And I was walking home from on 23rd Street, and I think Carol might have called me.
Carol Weissman, who is one of the producers, for those of you listening.
I think she was like, "Hey, would you like to be Casey Jones?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah!" And
did you read the comic books and stuff? Did you? Because the comic books were out at that point, right?
Yeah. Like I did not. I was more a fan of the cartoon and the movies. Okay. But yeah, I was super pumped, and I think I got a little misty-eyed on 23rd Street there. But I was super. That was like a really big deal for me. Like, Dario was great because it was on MTV, and obviously people knew MTV, and it was a big deal to be on a show that was broadcast or whatever. But Turtles was like huge for me because that was the first thing I ever got to work on that I was a fan of, and so that meant a great deal to me, and it was super, super fun to do.
Yeah, the fun thing is, so we talk about on this podcast a lot the difference between dubbing and how we record as opposed to new animation like Ninja Turtles. Was that, had you done cast records for Daria? Did you guys record together?
No, we always were alone. We were always kind of on our own and didn't even really meet each other until like cast parties and things like that. So yeah, Turtles was so cool because like there were those episodes where I got to be with the four of them or the five of us or whatever when Veronica was there, and so it was super fun to kind of get to riff with everybody, and that was a new and unique experience. I've only gotten to do that a handful of other times because most of the time it is just you by yourself and maybe the director's there, but so it was so fun to like be able to play off of each other and kind of feed off of each other's energy, and every once in a while like maybe like an improv thing might happen. So it was I love that experience, and I would any time I get to do that it's really really special because
As Steve, as a viewer, do you notice a big difference in the camaraderie of the characters now that they were in the same room as opposed to other work where they're not?
Hard to say because, like you were saying, it's a lot of actors are recorded individually. Sometimes I feel like I can notice like unfortunately the opposite. Sometimes I'm like, oh, like this does feel disjointed, but it's part of it. But I think with like prelay stuff, it's so rare, even these days. With Turtles, it's been a while since I've revisited the 2003 series. But definitely one of these days when I do, I'll keep an ear out for it in comparison to the dubs. But yeah, when it's there though, because I think maybe we might have talked about this on another interview, where I think stuttering or saying like that is kind of frowned upon in dubbing. Like you just don't do it. But I think it might be something that's in prelay because it
that naturalistic way of talking.
Yeah.
Did you feel freer in recording those than you did in dubbing, Mark?
Oh yeah. Like it was I definitely had to learn how to dub because it is such a unique skill to like figure out how to make those lip flaps make sense, and with the right emphasis on the correct syllable, and just like I think Eric directed me a lot, and Darren Dunstan directed me a lot, and they both of them were really good at making the most of awkward flaps or odd flaps or figuring out how to maybe rewrite a line so that it's better. So, but you do feel a little more restricted when you're dubbing because you're having to kind of fit a square peg in a round hole a lot of times.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes when I watch it back, it feels like we are doing our idea of what anime acting is. Yeah. And I think we eased out of that eventually, but some of that early stuff, I'm like, ooh, Tara, redo
it's
that.
animated like this, so I better talk like this. Yeah,
totally. We were all just learning, learning together and doing our best. So you worked on. I'm looking at your IMDb. That's my new name for IMDb.
IMDb, yes.
And you worked on a ton of the shows there. During this time, though, were you also still pursuing theater? Were you? I know you're working at the church. What other? I love hearing about people's day jobs during this time.
Yeah. It was predominantly the church. It was kind of like this was like my side hustle, and then there was a point where I stopped working for the church, and this became more of like the focus, which I think was still when I was doing stuff with 4Kids. So there was a point where it became more of a switch, but initially I was kind of doing it on the side and not really pursuing much else. And then when at one point I did I got an agent, and so I was pursuing like commercial work and stuff like that. And they eventually got me a bunch of audiobooks, and I do a bunch of the Star Wars audiobooks. So I was doing that. I did get one audition for a Broadway show. It was called Talk Radio.
Eric Bogosian.
Yes. And it was kind of a unique situation because they were looking for voiceover actors because they wanted a smaller cast that could play a bunch of the people that called into the radio show. But they wanted to do it live every night as opposed to like pre-recorded calls. So they set up like little mini sound booths beneath the stage, and we had closed circuit monitors so we could see Liev Schreiber on stage, and we would like call into the radio show, and they had speakers on they had more speakers than usual on the foot of the stage into the audience so they could hear it more as if it were actually being broadcast on a radio thing. And so it was super exciting, and Robert Falls directed it, and Liev Schreiber was very complimentary to me, and he's like, we had this really cool scene together where I was like this like killer, or not killer, but like I was like this crazy guy pretending to call in a bomb threat to the radio station. It was a very tense scene, and so he was very complimentary, and I thought, oh, this is it, like, I'm gonna start working on Broadway now, and like it's gonna just take off. And then it just never really happened, and I was just like, oh man, and I was a little disappointed, but and I'm not sure if it was just I don't have the I'm not sure what happened. So like, I would have loved to have done more theater than that, but it was predominantly that, and the stuff I did in college. Mm-hmm. And I did, for a while, Greg and Wayne and Ted Lewis, Veronica, Dan, and I'm probably leaving some other people out. Tony Salerno, I can't remember who else was there, but like we did like a one act thing of it was called Ives by Fives, and we did a bunch of little one act things. Veronica was in a scene with me, and so we did that as like a off Broadway type thing.
I think it was after I moved, but I have a remembrance of the once you said the name,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so that was
cool.
exciting, and there was a moment where we thought, well, maybe we'll have like a voice actor theater company, but it just never. It was a lot of work to put it up, and I think we all got busy with life and stuff. But that was exciting, and so I did that and the Broadway thing, and
I mean, it really highlights how friendly we all were. The fact that in your free time, you guys wanted to put a show together. Like I tell people, no, we really were friends in real life, but when you say that, it's true. Like that, that's the proof.
No, totally. Yeah. It was. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things I'm grateful for 4Kids. It definitely gave me the career I have for voiceover, and I'll be eternally grateful for that. But one of the bigger things is like that community of people that those friendships that were formed, and it's kind of been nice because I think we're all starting to do conventions a lot more, and we're starting to see each other on the convention circuit too. So it's kind of this nice revisiting of all that fun and relationships.
Your dog agrees.
Thank you, Azer. We chime in anytime.
I feel like you were somebody I didn't cross paths with as much, and now I spent more time with you in the past year. Which is, I feel I'm so grateful. Yeah, it's so
Me too.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you remember? I saw that you were in the One Piece video game. Steve's ears are going to prick up now. Perk up, prick up. Do ears prick up? I don't even know. Perk up. His ears perked up.
Yes.
I didn't even know there was a One Piece video game. Do you remember anything about that?
Several.
Or who you played? Several.
Actually, don't remember.
Steve,
I knew there was.
Oh, okay. I'm going to show my ass a little bit here. I apologize. Your voice was featured a lot in the 4Kids version of One Piece, but your claim to fame in that dub was voicing Admiral Don Krieg.
Don Krieg.
Yeah. And I got to explain my history a little bit. I'm a big One Piece fan.
Nice.
He's an encyclopedia.
Very cool.
4Kids One Piece, controversial. Let's say it.
Well, I wanted to ask you because I don't necessarily highlight that I did the 4Kids one because I've always gotten the sense that people didn't like that 4Kids had to do the censoring and kind of, changing it and stuff. So, but are there people that like the one we did, or are we just universally not disliked?
It's like, unfortunately, it is like it's mostly a negative reception.
Yeah, that's
for many reasons.
Not the performances necessarily. That's not the main reason, right?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong?
Well, it's here's the thing. It's like, this is where I'm like, I don't want to BS like it's like you guys. I'm like, there are some like there was casting choices like I don't know.
Okay.
And but like I think lately it's still like kind of it perks up. It pops up every now and then. I think there's like a clip of the other Marc Thompson, and like there was a line he did where he's just shouting that people love. But like I said, I've seen the 4Kids version. I'm caught up with the Japanese version. I watched the current English version that's done by Funimation, Crunchyroll. And I hate to do this, but I'm going to be honest. I loved you as Don Krieg. I thought you were great.
Hey, all right, good, thank you.
It was one of those times where I was just like, they nailed it.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. But should I have a Don Krieg print when I go to conventions or no?
As a One Piece fan, I'll tell you straight up, he's not a popular character.
Okay, then never mind. Thank you for being honest.
But the thing is, like, I'm a One Piece nut though, and I do like that character though. So like,
okay.
Someone like me would probably like tell you like,
that's cool.
Don
All
Krieg,
it takes
awesome.
is one. Yeah.
You know what I do now when I have a 4Kids One Piece, if someone asks me, or if I sign something, I put a 4K next to it, and I make sure ahead of time that I say I was only in this version. So if if you still want it, if you don't want it, and sometimes they take it and don't want my signature when they find that out. But as long as but if again,
that's a cool
you did a lot
idea.
of stuff
I like
for them.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, Tara, where you were leading with the question, because it was about video games. I was just I was that you just volleying me to like One Piece
a little bit, a little bit. Well, I was also going to talk.
You took the bait.
You did.
It worked.
But I was going to talk about the difference between recording games versus the TV show. But again, I think our memories have faded a lot.
Yeah.
Did you record at the same studio for those games?
Yes. I don't. Yeah. I mean, it is more a lot of times about the for the video games. My memory of them is obviously very vague, but like I do know that it's generally like much more about the reacts and kind of the fight effort type things. And it's a little. I mean, I kind of felt this way with a lot of the 4Kids shows anyway, because so much of them were about the exposition of whatever game was being played, So in some ways they're kind of similar in that sense, but there wasn't always a strong story reason for things to be happening. It was a lot of it was like this move, So in that ways it was maybe a little similar to video games, but video games definitely emphasize that much more. So yeah.
I'm also curious, and this is a question for both of you, because something Tara has talked about in previous interviews is like the speed in which the actors and the directors were working on shows, just getting it done. And I'm curious, were the video games the same, or did you felt like you had a little more time? And I know a lot of it was dubbing too, but some of it was kind of just, I wouldn't say it's prelay, but some of those games are just like the cutscenes are just talking, like just like a stagnant image, and then the dialogue plays. I'm curious if you two remember at all having a little more time to kind of play around, or was it similar to the pace of working on the shows?
For me, I think it was always a pretty fast pace. I think, when it was a video game, we weren't necessarily doing it to picture, so you had a little more freedom to, imbue it with your cadence or performance. But they're pretty fast in general, though. But I will say that, like, I've worked at other studios that work even faster, and there's not as much an eye on quality. It's just, it really is just about, it's good enough, move on, go, you know. And I always felt like at 4Kids, even though it was a very fast pace, I felt like, you know, I worked with Eric and Darren a lot, and I do feel like they really took the time. Like if there was a joke to be had, they wanted to make sure they got the joke right, or if there was a moment, we would do several takes to make sure that we got the moment the way they wanted it. So I'm in general, for me, I feel proud of what was done at 4Kids, although it was a quick pace. But a lot of that though, I felt like it was because people were proficient at what they did. It wasn't like, let's just rush through this, nobody cared. You know, it was more like, you know, they were so skilled at what they were doing that they could get through a lot.
Yeah,
you know?
Actors didn't get called back if they didn't work quickly. Was kind of the sense I got. Yeah. You know, I think Eric said to me, he's like, you were fast, like that. You worked quickly. Like I would request you because you worked quickly. You know, and I knew right. I could get this many lines done. So I think that's honestly why it was a small pool of us, because they were like, we don't have the luxury of time. These people are efficient.
Yeah. And it was something that either you picked up or you didn't. Like dubbing, like it's really hard to teach dubbing. You have to kind of do it by doing. But if after a couple episodes you're not figuring out how to get in the rhythm and figuring out how to do it, then it's probably not going to work out, at least at that time, with that volume.
Mark, that's such an interesting point, and I want to see how you feel about this. I've been seeing all these classes for dubbing and voiceover and studying, and and I'm not saying positive or negative, but you and I didn't come up taking voiceover classes, or no. You were an actor. This was another job. Do you have a reaction when you see all these classes and now these people clamoring? I mean, we get asked at least 80 times a day at a convention how to be a voice actor.
Yeah. I guess it's a complex reaction, because I feel there's a part of me that feels like the emphasis really should be on the acting part. And that if you can do that well, the other stuff does tend to work itself out. But you know, there is something to be said for some of those skills, and I think that, you know, maybe because there is more opportunity or more competition, it helps someone warm up into it so that they are able to be proficient when they get in there, and those classes can help with that. But I sometimes do feel like that the focus on the acting part is not emphasized as much as it should be. I think if people get that on straight and focus on that, a lot of the other stuff you'll kind of learn on the job, is my opinion.
Do you have your rote answer for the 1,000 times you're asked, how do I get into voice acting?
Yes, I do. Basically, D. Bradley Baker.
Oh my God, it's like you're quoting me. It's like you read my diary. Say it. Like you say it. Yeah.
Well, he wrote this great website called iwannabeavoiceactor.com, and if you want to check it out, it's like one of the most thorough explanations I've seen of how to get through it. You know.
Oh my gosh, literally
and it really is
verbatim
like
what I say.
I need to thank him at some point, because it's just, you know, he really outlines it really well in terms of, you know, this is how you get a demo, this is the type of equipment. You know,
I thanked him. Great. I finally met him and thanked him. I said, thank you, because I have an answer to give to them now.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to add, because I think this is probably unique for the two of you, but for speaking for someone from, you know, my generation, I think like it's different, because I think you two maybe were more inspired by film, by stage. And, you know, I have a lot of peers that are in acting, and they were inspired by, some of them were inspired by watching anime.
Right.
And
it's different. You're totally right. Yeah. That's a great point, actually.
But I don't think like you shouldn't stop at anime. Is if I could speak, I know I'm not authority on this, but I think some people kind of don't realize. I'm like, I mean, it's good. Like, hey, if you want to do anime, that's great, but there's so much more you could do. Don't limit yourselves.
Well, and to make a living only as an anime actor is nearly impossible based
Tough.
on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do the conventions, but not
Mm.
based on the rates that we get paid for anime. You'd have to be working. You know, it's unusual to be working 40 hours a week doing anime dubbing.
Oh yeah, yeah. To add to Steve's point, like I've actually found that broadening my horizons has helped, you know, dubbing as well. Like, you know, like I never would have wanted or chosen to do audiobooks, but doing audiobooks has taught me a lot about storytelling and, you know, kind of, you know, using your voice in a different way that then ended up feeding back into maybe dubbing skills or other acting skills. And so I do think that's good advice in general of just being able to try a lot of different things, because they all will influence each other and all will help each other. And if you only specialize in this one particular thing, it can be limiting. It won't always be limiting, but it can, you know, handcuff you. But if you know, because Terry, you were talking earlier about how many of us maybe had some roots in theater and other things and how that might have helped. So I just think that as many different experiences and many different, you know, genres of performing or communicating that you can experience will all help it be a much richer experience for other people and a richer performance, I think. Yeah.
When we record these audiobooks, we play all the characters, which I would guess if it's true for me that I'm a little more fearless when I'm in another, like an anime job or something, because I'm like, I just did 40 characters in that book. Like I can make these two sound different, or, you know.
Yeah.
And your work on Star Wars is phenomenal. If you have not heard Marc narrate the Star Wars audiobooks, you should stop listening to this and go to Audible and get them, because he's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And
How
when
many?
Was,
yeah,
sorry.
When was the time? Yeah, I think you alluded to this earlier, but when was the time you started working on the Star Wars books?
I believe it was 2006. So yeah, it was a while ago now. But yeah, it was. I think it was interesting because, like, I think I got cast in the audiobooks maybe because I was used to doing a bunch of different cartoon characters and felt a little more confident doing character voices in the audiobooks. And there's it's not as much happening now, but like there were some people, like I was speaking with someone today that brought up the fact that they were told not to do character voices in audiobooks because they would have a hard time maintaining it through the entire length of the book, and that, you know, you should pick something more subtle, and, you know, and you know, I my experience was always I want to, you know, make these characters super distinct to make it easier to listen to, and, you know, so that, I think I was kind of fearless in the audiobook audition because of the animation stuff as well. And then I had to kind of learn how to make the prose interesting. And Kevin Thompson, I think you may have worked with. Yeah, he's awesome.
So good.
But he really kind of coached me and helped me learn how to actually make the prose interesting and make the actual beats of the story make sense. And so it's really interesting and cool.
Do you do other audiobooks as well, not just the Star Wars series, correct?
Right. Yeah, I do. I like every once in a while there's like a young adult one or a kid's book I do, and there's some new ones that we've been doing with Timothy Zahn that are like sci-fi novels and stuff. But mostly it's Star Wars, and I kind of would be happy if it was just Star Wars. You know, like I'll take whatever work I can get because I need to work. You know, but audiobooks are challenging, so I think I needed it to be something I was genuinely passionate about in order to push me and persevere through, because they take a lot out of you. And I'm not sure I would have done audiobooks if it weren't for Star Wars. I probably would have said, no thanks, you know.
So, okay, I want to talk about your geekiness with Star Wars. And now that I know Star Trek. So
Yes.
Okay, so you grew up being a fan of both. Is that correct?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I was so, I mean, yeah, I both were always in my life, and I always was a fan of both. In high school, junior high and high school, I was much more of a Trekkie than I was a Star Wars fan. And then when I got into I think around the time I got married, I think Star Wars, or no, it was actually when the prequels came. So it was around 99 that when the prequels came out, I started getting really heavily back into Star Wars again. So I was always into both, but for a long, long time, I was more of a Trekkie than I was a Star Wars fan. So
wow, because I have such an image of you being a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah.
So when you got that Star Wars job, did you freak out?
Oh yeah. No, that was another one where I was like, tearing up and thanking God and like, oh yeah,
Right.
So it was like, that was a really, really big deal for me. Even more so than Turtles, and still is. Like, one of my best friends makes fun of me because on my resume, I'll have like Star Wars audiobooks, and then I'll have like all these like commercials I've done or the Broadway show I was in, and he was looking at my resume. He was like, casting people care much more about this Broadway show and these commercials you did than Star Wars. Like, I know, but it's Star Wars. Like, he's like, dude, come on. I'm like, no, but you got to put that up there. So like, I'm extremely grateful that I get to do that.
So now I have had the privilege of watching people freak out when they meet you. Who would you freak out if you met? Like the way that I've seen.
Yeah. The first person that comes to mind is Mark Hamill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've worked with Mark. Interesting
have you really?
fella. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Well,
really?
I'll tell you a very quick story. So we did a cartoon called Generator Rex together. And
wow.
I know this is not about me, but it's a good story. So we were standing next to each other, and it was before we all had iPads in the booth or whatever. So he had a newspaper with him, and he was, and that wasn't unusual. That wasn't like people in between, because he wasn't in every scene. So I was doing my scene with I believe Daryl Sparrow, who's phenomenal, and they said, Tara, you're moving your script, because we had paper scripts. They said, oh, sorry, I don't think I was, but okay. Oh, sorry, just trying. I'm excited to be in the room with these people.
Right.
Because the room was stacked. I mean, it was J.K. Simmons. It was insane. I can't even get into.
Wow. Oh my God.
Mark's jaw dropped.
Yeah. I don't know what I was doing there. So the paper, they hear paper. I go, oh, okay, sorry. It happens again. And I'm like, Mark Hamill is reading the newspaper. This is what's making this noise, but I can't tell on him.
Right.
And I'm like freaking out. So finally, I don't know, we get through it. And the next time I'm like, okay, next time I go in, I'm going to make sure I tell them that I'm a professional and I was not moving my papers and like. And so, of course, like months later, I go in. I'm like, just so you guys know, it was Mark moving his newspaper. They're like, what are you talking? Like, no one even remembered.
Right. But for you, it was like weighing on you.
And I was like, Mark Hamill, foiled again. Like, he's my nemesis. But no,
that's so
he's
great.
always been very nice. But I really would love for you to meet him. I hope that does happen at some point.
I had one opportunity. I did a show called The Wrong Coast, and I don't even know if it aired anywhere, but I did a character, and then he was doing a character on that show, but we were just always recording individually and never, and one day the casting director or the director was like, hey, Mark's going to be coming in after you. Do you want to meet him? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And so like we're waiting, and he's not coming in. And all of a sudden I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I'm like,
oh, no.
I don't want to miss him. And she's like, oh, just go real quick. I'm sure it's fine. So I finally go to the bathroom. I come back and she's like, you just missed him. Like he just went. And I was like, it was so devastated. And I never got to meet him after that. And I was like, ah. So, but now it's like, now I'm afraid to meet him because I feel like I would just like totally fanboy all over him and it would be very awkward and weird and like so. But yeah,
so what? Listen, just do it. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, he's not only is he Luke Skywalker, but he's a really great voice actor. He's
amazing.
He's one of the people that I would like anytime, like when I would hear the Joker, and then I would hear him on. Did he do stuff on a regular show?
Yes,
he's on everything.
Yeah, he's on everything. But like, there's so many times where like that's Mark Hamill, and like that's the type of voice actor I always wanted to be. Was that that you can't tell.
He's
a
chameleon.
And,
he really is.
So I admire him for that as well. As first and foremost, Luke Skywalker, but he's just an awesome voice actor and actor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I love that you have what it's like to be a hardcore fan, because I feel like at these conventions, I don't necessarily relate to their excitement over shows I've worked on, because again, I don't watch myself. But
Right.
I'm a fan of other things. So I assume you probably do the same thing. You understand fandom and.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I was saying, like for me, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, they really were just jobs. Like I didn't know about the games, or I didn't watch the shows as a fan, and it wasn't until much later that I saw. Like I remember being at a Yu-Gi-Oh like live competition, and they had Dan and I do like a live reading of a script, and it was like we would read. It was like reading an episode. And it was like, as always, like you say, I play this trap card, that does this thing. And I never knew what I was saying. But when I was doing it live in front of these people, it was like a football game. Like I would say, I played this card. Whoa! No! And I was like, holy cow. Like, I never realized, like, what, so that it wasn't until much later that I saw, but because of how I am about Star Trek and Star Wars, you're right. Like, I it makes me happy that in some small way I get to be that.
You're there,
else,
Mark
so
Hamill.
like...
Mark. You
I
are.
don't know if it's that level, but
no,
yeah.
but it's true. I mean, yeah, you're really, we do these conventions together, and I watch people interact with the fans, and it is really cool to see you do that. And it's not for everybody. I don't think going to these conventions is for everybody. What did you think of it when you started like signing stuff, and was it really weird to you after that Yu-Gi-Oh event?
Yeah. It was like, there's at first it was really shocking, because I was like, why would they want to, my signature, or why would they care, and it still is, I'm just doing it a little more frequently now. So I guess I'm just getting accustomed to it. But like there's a part of me that always feels like, why do you want this, and
same.
So, but then I also try to keep in mind, like, when because I would go to these conventions as a fan, and I met like, like so last weekend, or maybe it was 2 weekends ago now, I was at a convention, and Jonathan Frakes was there as one of the guests. And
I don't know who that is. Can you tell
okay.
us
It's Commander Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation. Okay. So, and I had actually gone to see him when I was like 15 years old, and I found like pictures of him from that convention that, I took of him, and I brought them with me to the convention, and I was like, maybe I'll get a chance to meet Jonathan Frakes. And so I was telling Germani, our friend, and who's like a booking agent for a lot of these conventions, about it. And he's like, I got you. I'm going to introduce you. I was like, all right. So he's like, I talked to the convention promoter. You're totally going to meet Riker. Like, they're going to set it up. And so like, I was like wanting to do it. And then I guess like the end of the day came, and like, he had to go catch a plane early and end up leaving.
No.
And I was like, no. So I keep missing all these people.
Wait, this is like now a theme.
I know.
I don't like this theme.
I know. So, but so I don't know. I imagine, like, if I ever got to meet these people in these situations, how I would want them to interact with me, and I try to bring that as much as I can to the people that come to my table or whatever. But yes, that's a long way of answering that. I totally get what it's like as a fan at these conventions, and totally respect and understand the reverence that people have for something that, because it's not just a cartoon to people. It's like, it's the way I feel about, it's not just a movie or a TV show for me. It's like, these things were super formative to me, and like, taught me life lessons and helped me through tough times. And, so I totally get and relate to all that, and feel the same way about the stuff I'm a fan of. So.
Well, I have some insight into this, because I know in your real life, you're not going around saying, hey guys, guess what? I'm Casey Jones. Because Mark and I were at a convention together, and we happened to run into somebody who you knew from home, from your church. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And she was a young girl, and I don't think she had any idea what a big deal you were.
Yeah.
And it was
that
nice
was funny.
to
She was
see.
really... Yeah, she loved meeting you, because you were on one of the shows that she watched.
She knew
and that
Barbie
was
Life in the Dream House.
Deal.
She knew every episode inside out. She was like with Barbie Life in the Dream House, like Steve is with One Piece. It was. I've never seen anything. She was complaining about the order that Netflix had the shows, and she knew everything.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Aquila.
It was shout out to Aquila. I really liked her a lot, but it was fun to see. Again, it's fun to see your friends in different elements, in different scenarios. So what
Thank
are
you for being so sweet to her.
No,
That
she was
really
great.
Cool.
What are you up to these days? I know you're still working in anime. I know you're still doing audiobooks. What kind of stuff are you working in?
So I'm still doing stuff for Pokemon. I'm still kind of able to do some,
Who are you playing right now?
creatures.
Who are your current characters?
I think I'm more creatures again. So I think it's Rhydon is his name. He's like a rhinoceros turtle something.
Sounds right.
And then there's like a fire type pig. I can't remember his name now.
A fire type pig. That's
it's not Tepig or Embor. It's like another one. It's like I can't remember. So I should probably know that. But I'm still doing stuff for them until they hear this podcast. I'm like, get them out of here. And then I'm doing. There's a show on Netflix called Bread Barbershop that I do.
Oh, cool.
There's working on some shows that don't have a distributor yet, but if they come out, I think they'll be really, really cool. That I think people would really enjoy. Still doing Star Wars audiobooks. I'm in the middle of one right now. And then a bunch of I do a bunch of shows that were either French or Russian or Italian, and I find them like in weird places. Like I was in Costa Rica for a vacation, and I saw this show that I've been working on called Kitty Cats. And it was like in Costa Rica on TV. And I was like, this is where this is? Like, what is going on? And it was in English. And I was like, oh, weird. So
that is weird.
So yeah, lots of little things here and there. So
if I may ask this one question, because you're still in New York. 4Kids eventually, of course, ended. But you still stayed in New York. I'm just curious, was there ever a time when it's like, ooh, I'm getting a lot less work right now because 4Kids is gone? Or it's like, what was that like? Because this would have been like maybe like 2010, 2011 or so. Looking at all your credits, it kind of seemed like you were still on stuff. Like you're like, for people that might not know, you were in dubs that were being produced in like LA. And I'm just curious if there was ever kind of like a moment where it's like, am I going to stay in New York, or did you just always stay the course?
Yeah, it's like, it was definitely a bit of a blow. Obviously it was sad to see it go because at its pinnacle, like I was very fortunate where like I would go in and work on 3-4 shows a day sometimes. Yeah. Like they'd be like, hey, when you're done here, go into this other studio. They're going to have you play a thug or a scientist in this one. And, so to go from like, it slowly started getting pared down, and it started being like from 5 shows to 3, and then 2, and then it's just the one show left, and it's like, and I'm still doing little itty bitty characters on like Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, and that's like the one. Well, now it's Konami and it's not 4Kids anymore, but so it was sad when it was kind of going away, and it was hard financially when it was going away, because you kind of get accustomed to that level of income. But I guess I just was trying to hold on. There were definitely seasons where I was like having to cater waiter, and I think I was lucky because I've been pretty fortunate where when one thing started to end, another thing started to pick up. So like around the time that 4Kids was starting to end, the audiobooks started to really pick up. And then there's a studio that I work with now called 3 Beep that, will still use me somewhat frequently. And I was able to still, because I didn't have like, I actually don't know why I survived the cut, but like I was still able to work with Pokemon even when they went over to Ayuno and different places, or they went to DuArt and then Ayuno.
Actually, that's a good question. You never worked for Pokemon at Taj, correct? You were, because they went.
I did.
No, they went back to Taj after.
Oh, I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. So
that's sort of a mystery because it seems that all the actors, I had moved at this point, all the actors have a different version of how Pokemon ended for them. There's some actors that say there was something in our 4Kids contract keeping us from being able to work on it at Taj for a certain amount of time, a sunset clause. And also there's some rumors that like 4Kids didn't want us working at Taj because Taj had taken back the property. And then that once it went to IUNO, actors were then allowed to go work on it again. Again, a lot of this is speculation. Do you remember getting like a phone call saying, hey, you're not coming, we don't have Pokemon anymore? Or
so when it was at 4Kids, I never played anything major. Like I was always kind of like, you know, they come to this region and I'm the hotel manager at the region or you know, little creatures here and there, you know, whatever. And then I do, now that you're saying that, I do vaguely remember some sort of conversation of, you know, maybe it wasn't like a formal letter or anything, but I remember somebody saying like, you know, you probably don't want to go over there and do that because that would maybe affect you being cast in the other stuff that's still at 4Kids or something.
Yeah, well,
you know,
that's
like, oh, okay. You know,
I heard that there was kind of this unspoken thing, or maybe even spoken to some people that from 4Kids that said, if you work on that, you will not be on Pokemon at Taj. You will not be brought in for other shows here. Yeah,
no, but that sounds, as you're bringing it up, that's kind of my memory of it as well. And I wasn't at that time a real recognizable Pokemon or a real recognizable trainer. For me, it was like, okay, sure, you know, like so. But when it went to Do Art, I worked there, and I don't remember it being controversial or weird. Or
I believe that whatever clause was in that contract possibly expired by that point, and because it was not at Taj, it was more acceptable. Like I know Ted Lewis also went back around that time when we talked about that, but it seems that very few people worked on it in that. I think it was like season 9 when it was at Taj again. So it is a mystery that, you know, again, we're never going to know definitively, but it is interesting that there's all these different versions of events.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, you know, COVID was really hard. And I don't know how personal I should get here, but like, well, I still haven't really recovered from COVID, like in terms of like financially, like just so we are actually going to be moving soon, and so that'll be the end of New York for me for a while.
Where do you know where you're moving? I know we talked about this. I don't know if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. Austin, Texas. We're going to go to Austin, Texas, and it's also, it's not just financial. It's like you know, my wife's originally from Texas, and my boys are now living in Texas, and so it'll be
he has grown children.
That's probably the main. Yeah. so that's much more, but it's but to be frank, it is become very, very hard to stay working in New York. Like I'm it's been super challenging. So it's a big reason why I'm starting to do a lot more the convention stuff is there's a financial component to that, and you know, so it's challenging.
Do you ever think about if we had signed a better contract at Pokemon? And I mean, I hate to be this bitter person, but I think I think there's a shared experience between us where if we had maybe made what we deserved for those big shows, financial things would not be, I wouldn't be asking for money for autographs or
right.
So it's tough.
Yeah, I don't know. I could go lots of different ways with it, because on the one hand, yes, but then I knew what I was signing up for, and I signed up for it anyway. And it's just one of the hard things about the entertainment business is there's just so many people that want to do it, and there's not as many jobs for people to do. Yeah. So that because the way supply and demand works, it's just it'll be there. So, but it's also like, it's kind of weird because a lot of those shows, maybe they could have paid us better when it came out, but it's weird how, I don't know if 20 years later I'd still be making, I've gotten a much higher rate of pay on other projects that are not still popular 20 years later.
Right.
Like I got there's some jobs where I went in for maybe a half hour and made $1,000 for that half hour. And that was a really great rate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a super, but that show didn't go anywhere. That show didn't catch fire. That, so I don't know. I feel like it's kind of working out in the end. And I don't think I would have a lot of the career I have if I didn't do some of those shows. I guess they could have paid me in retrospect better because they were obviously making a good amount of money, but they've kind of helped me in other ways.
Yes.
I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. So yeah, but
sure.
I'm not advocating for studios to not pay what the people deserve. I think studios should pay a lot more and can afford to pay a lot more,
Yes.
but I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's the fact that we are talking about any of this 20 years later is remarkable and lucky. And
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up and let Marc get back to his life. Steve, any final questions before we let Marc go?
It's going to be an odd kind of question because it almost feels like something I should have brought up a half hour ago, but I feel like I'm going to kick myself if I don't bring up if I didn't bring it up. You were a lead on a show called Ultimate Muscle.
Yes. I did want to talk about this.
I just recently picked up the Blu-ray.
Oh,
here.
Nice! That's awesome.
Is that newly released? That Blu-ray?
Fairly new
out.
from Discotech. It's the entirety of the English dub.
Cool.
I think all on one disc or a few. But no, that was a show I was invested in back in the day, and
that's cool.
And you were in it a lot, and I'm curious. I would love to know some memories or just opinions on it.
Yeah. I'm trying. I don't want to So I loved being a part of it. I want to say that was before Turtles. Is that correct?
Yeah, this would have been as the Fox box launched. So you would have.
Yes.
So this would have been 2002.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was the first one where I was like the lead character. Like every other show I was kind of like the B team or whatever. So that was a big deal. I thought the humor was like really hilarious, and it was definitely like when he's like propelling himself in the air by farting and like you're seeing the gas cloud. I'm like, what is this show? Like I was just like I was trying to understand like who made this, and there were even moments where I was even like talking to the writers, like, should kids be watching this? Like, is it, like, I was like, am I okay being a part of this? So, but yeah, like I loved it, and it was really over the top, which is definitely my style of doing things. Like I love being big and eccentric. And so I love that show.
I'm curious because credits are sometimes hard to find. You mentioned the writers. Do you remember at all who was writing on the show and who you were talking to? Because
we didn't usually meet them.
It's really punched up, the dialogue.
Yes.
And I gotta admit, like a lot of it would catch me off guard, and it's pretty funny stuff. Or who was directing you on that show?
Eric was directing me, and so we definitely had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the writer's name, but there was one joke that I thought was too far, and I did like talk to him about it, and he was like, "Come on, it's just fun," But it was something about like a three-legged donkey or something. It was just like it was like making it like a. I was like, like
there was a very controversial release with that show. Something kind of phallic and bad went out, and they had to recall, I believe, the VHS tapes. Steve, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we've caught wind of this on Twitter. I think it was like a promotional VHS for like the Fox box or something, and it had like a trailer for Ultimate Muscle.
It was pretty offensive.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like there were a couple things that they had to like rotoscope out, and like like we had to change some things because it was really kind of raunchy.
Well, even the farting, what we learned in another interview is that to get past like standards and practices for children's TV, that they will analyze a fart sound to see like, is it too wet? Is it too this?
What?
Yeah. So the fact.
No.
So what's crazy to me is that 4Kids would pick up a show.
Yes.
Like that, knowing how much they might have to cut, or that a fart might not even get by.
Right. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And evidently somebody's doing a new version, I think.
Yeah.
Like when.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, I didn't know if you.
I could fill you.
I don't.
Yeah. Tell us.
Well, no, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love an audition if you have any connections.
So I can't help you there, but yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Studio might be Madhouse. I forget, but
Okay.
they're going back. It's a continuation off of the 80s series. I think there might have been a story arc that was never animated, but that is getting like a modern anime coming next year. And
Gotcha.
who knows?
Yeah.
You know,
they need you.
I guess it really depends on who licensed it. But like, what's great to see is like even something like they made the new Shaman King anime, and it was great to see a lot of you called back and got to reprise your roles. So I wouldn't rule it out.
For Shaman King, they offered us everyone they could contact. They offered their roles, which was really nice.
But what was hilarious about that is when they went to my agent, and when my agent booked me on it, they said they want you for Casper. And that was like, I guess, like a code word they were using for like NDA
I know.
purposes.
It was so confusing. Yeah.
So I showed up in the session and I'm thinking I'm doing something for Casper the Friendly Ghost. And
no one told you?
These kids. No one told me. And then it was like, I was like on the spot trying to remember what I did however many years ago. And we were like Googling stuff on YouTube. And like, I had no idea it was Shaman King. I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, it's crazy. Yeah. Cause they didn't have like the clips from the original dub, I guess, ready to go. So that, that's terrifying.
Or maybe they just assumed.
Well, I had asked if there were going to be voice references there, and they said yes, but I don't think they realized I meant from the original. So luckily, luckily I had watched some episodes, and I remember I sent Lisa the link, and I sent it to whoever I knew was going in, because. I was like, guys, I went in. They didn't have the voice references. If you want, here's some illegal way you can watch these episodes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we all got to do that again. I have a weird question for you, and this is also a plug so people can follow you online. Your username on like social media is definitely a geeky thing that I don't get the reference to. Where can people find you, and what does it mean?
So it's Captain Ehud, and honestly, it's like it's Captain because I'm into Star Trek and Star Wars, and it felt very sci-fi to me, and it came about because I was trying to find a username on Xbox, and everything I like put in there wouldn't let me take it because it was already taken. So I eventually came up with Captain Ehud, and Ehud was one of the judges from the Book of Judges in the Bible, and he kills King Eglon, and it describes like the fat rolling over the knife as he embeds it in his abdomen, and that image always stuck with me because it was so gross and weird, and I was like, why is that detail in there? So I just always remembered that name, and so I put it in.
All right, so if you want to follow Mark, it's at Captain EHUD.
EHUD, and I think I have underscore.
I think there is. So he's on
all
all of the social medias, but you should follow him because hopefully he will be at a convention near you soon, and you can talk to him in person and pretend he's Mark Hamill. Freak out.
No.
Thank you so much, Mark. We really
appreciate this was super fun. Thank you guys for having me. It was great.
Aw, Marc Thompson, what a nice dude.
Good bloke.
Yeah, who I'm sure plays a really great villain, but he's just the nicest, silliest guy. So I don't think I want to hear him do any bad guy roles.
Well, it's as long as the voice sounds good, it's like I think you could excuse a lot of villainous activity. I don't know.
Fine. He's great.
Yeah. It was fun to get a chance to finally speak with him after being very familiar with a lot of his stuff since like Daria too. I was watching Daria way back when too, so I still remember when I put 2 and 2 together that like Kid Muscle and like Kevin were the same voice. I was just like, oh, no way. And I think that's why I learned, I'm like, oh, Daria must have been recorded in New York.
Yep. Well, we recorded I didn't do Daria, but I worked on a bunch of shows over at Viacom at that time. I worked on Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. So totally. So and I worked on some pilots that unfortunately never went at over at like VH1 MTV. But yeah, there's a lot of crossover between those. There wasn't a lot of animation to do in New York until this dubbing 4Kids work came up. So I felt lucky to do it. Yeah, Marc Thompson. So I guess we'll wrap this up, but make sure you follow us on the different podcast channels. Oh, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you could subscribe, rate, and review, that's always a nice thing to do. So yeah, you can go to 4kidsflashback.com, go to our Patreon and all that stuff, and make sure you follow Marc on social media at Captain _ I think Ehud will definitely put his a link to his socials in the show notes. And yeah, thanhanks for listening. And
we'll catch you next time.
Say your tagline, Steve.
Oh, I said it this time.
Steve has a tagline. Oh man,
Right.
I cut him off. You say it. I won't talk.
Sorry. We'll catch you next time.
Bam. 4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.